Stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, roll call.
Neil Zuckerman.
Here.
Kim Connor. Dennis Gagnon.
Here.
David Hardy.
Here.
Peter Lewis.
Here.
Neil Toman.
Here.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kelly. We don't have any minutes yet, given the interregnum between Tara and Kelly, so we will look for those next month. Okay, and we'll do two sets. This is my first official board meeting as chair of this here organization. I will be preferred to be called chair, not chairman. This is a new era we're in. Let's just strike the man part. A few remarks, if you'll just indulge me for a minute. One, I want to thank Andy Moranti for his many, many years of service to this board. He has taught me and many of us on this board not only what it means to serve on the board and how to serve on one, but what it means to provide service to this community. So I want to thank Andy, who I'm sure is watching riveted at home to these here proceedings. Also want to thank Richard Shea, our town supervisor, for the appointment, and Bob Flaherty, our representative from the town board, who was stalwart in his attendance and support of us. I do want to also say that it does take a village. I may be the chair, but that is just one vote on this board, and whether it is Kelly, your support, and Tara before you, or my friend Mr. Toman, Peter, David, Dennis, and certainly Kim, who I've been serving this board with for almost a decade now. I thank them. I will need their help. We will be working together. We will be supporting each other, and I promise to not be the least, but not be the best either at times. So, and also Stephen, and Ron, thank you for your years and years of service. It makes it easier to take on a role like this when you have continuity of leadership and expertise. So, thank you for that. Final comment, I just want to talk about just a philosophy. 3 points I wanted to share. One, when I first joined this board 8.5 years ago, Charlie Paul Hemus said to me, "You just need to follow the law." And so I will continue to abide by that rule, that this zoning is the primary thing we filter things through. That said, it is a balancing act. There are judgment calls for us at all times, and I promise continue to do the things I do, which is balance, which is provide a balance between the property rights of individuals and the community's rights, and I'll continue to help think about that as I sit here in this role and support our decisions. And the final thing I want to make sure is clear is that we believe in equal treatment. Doesn't matter if someone handwrote their application, can't afford representation of legal counsel or of engineering support, all the way through those people who bring legions of lawyers. They will get equal treatment here and equal support from this board. So with that, I want to talk about our agenda. So first, correspondence. We received some from Mr. Watson's office related to the Orenreich. Anyone have any comments on said correspondence?
Can we ask Glenn to tell us what about it?
I'm afraid I can't. I don't know
We
much
can't?
about it.
Didn't it come from your office, though?
Yes, it comes from my office, but I'm not the only one there,
Oh, I see.
despite popular belief.
Okay. 'Cause it says that it's a slight modification, that it replaces an existing lodge building with a slightly larger updated building. Do you know what goes on in this building?
No,
No.
I really don't. I mean, I know there's one residence there, and there's the Orenreichs are medical people who do research, but I don't know exactly what happens there.
Maybe we can ask, oh, sorry, go ahead, Kim. Steve, I was going to ask you, I mean, we have a referral. It's been referred to us, I guess, because it abuts Philipstown. Is that the extent of the?
Across the street, it's across 301.
Right. So any thoughts for us about what we should be thinking about, given that it is not part of our jurisdiction explicitly?
If I may, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but I do have a question for Steve regarding recusal. I do have dealings with the Orenreich Foundation. I am not in their employ. I'm wondering at what stage is there a recusal in order, or if there is one.
If you have a position, a relationship with them, such that ruling in their favor or making favorable comments might in some way benefit you, a quid pro quo type of thing, then you should recuse yourself.
Then I'm going to recuse myself. Thank you.
Okay. So, to get back to your question, Neil, there's no legal requirement for a site plan to be referred to an adjoining municipality. This is akin to courtesy referral to a fire company or something along those lines. I think that the thought here, and we don't know because Putt Valley hasn't written to us. This is from the consultant. So, I mean, we're going on a secondhand statement that it's been referred. There isn't even an official referral, at least that we're aware of. It's if you have some concerns, interests, comments, questions, you might want to pass them on to Putt Valley to give them a little bit different perspective. But that aside, you have no obligation to do anything with this.
Let me ask you a slightly related question, which is if this group voted, say, to find this of interest and wanted to have more information, could we vote as a board to request from Putnam Valley to come give us a presentation and/or their affiliates?
Well, you could ask, but I would think that what would be more likely is if you asked to have the applicant make a presentation or perhaps present a memo or a more detailed set of plans or something along those lines so that you'd be in a position to comment. I think that's about all you could do. You have no right to demand anything from them.
Folks, any thoughts on whether we would like to have some information? Because clearly this just states there's a slight modification of what we don't know.
I don't understand why the consultant, if it's a referral, why it's a referral from the consultant, right?
I
Does
can
that,
probably tell you that they were told to do that, because that wouldn't be something that we would normally do
And the who's the, by whom?
by the planning board. I mean, I'm speculating, but we don't send these things to any more people to get to look at them than required, you know? I'm sure I'm sure that we must have been asked.
Other questions?
I don't see how we can comment on it if we don't know what it is.
Would we like to send, let me ask, maybe make make a statement and I'll see if we can get a motion on this. Would we like to make a motion to have correspondence drafted of the Putnam Valley Planning Board to either themselves or ask their applicant to present to us? Any thoughts on that?
Just ask for clarification of what it's about, what the impact is, what the.
Why they asked, why they asked
why they
Watson's
asked-
office in the first place,
Yeah,
maybe?
yeah.
That'd be a good one.
So can I have a motion to ask for a piece of correspondence, Kelly, to draft to the Putnam Valley Planning Board to ask for some clarification as to why?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All abstaining? The ayes have it.
Just one thing on that. Do you want a letter prepared to go from you to Putt Valley, or do you want it to go from Ron or I to Putt Valley?
Which will have greater which will have greater weight, Mr.
Well,
Gava.
Ron, obviously. I mean,
Well, your question was you versus, I guess, us. So
yeah, you could either have it come from the board, you can have it come from the consultant.
I have no preference. Do you have a recommendation?
Well, it's quicker if it comes from one of us, but that aside.
Well, then can
I'd
we,
like to amend my motion.
Well, you can just direct us, you don't need to.
Okay. Go ahead.
so directed? A vote needed to amend said direction? All right, let's continue then. Thank you very much. That was mildly helpful for us to make progress. Okay, old business, Marzolo Lane Gate Road. I think we have had our site visit, and the question for now would be, I think maybe we start with the applicant to provide us some additional clarity. I don't know how much more we need to add since we went through it last month.
I don't have a lot to add, but the one question that Ron raised at the site visit was the possibility of moving the septic system from here further back, away from the road. And we looked into that, and one of the reasons that it's where it is because there's a well, and the county requires that they have what they call a well protection diagram. And it's on this print, which is, that's the only modification to the plan you have. And this is the same thing. And essentially, from the well, you have a 100-foot semicircle downhill, and then you have a line out about 200 feet uphill. It actually follows the drainage line, and then it connects and makes this keyhole sort of shaped thing. We can't put a septic in there because of the well. Okay, so I mean, we might move it a couple of feet, but going through that permit process for what we're gonna gain out of that is, in my view, not really worth the effort.
Does it have to be that far from the house? Like, could that long line that goes to the diamond shape get shorter?
It could. I mean, yes, I'd have to look at the slope. Yes, I guess it could, because the slopes don't look too bad, but it's not gonna get any further from the road, which was the whole point of the
But it would
concern.
bring it closer to the existing cleared area, so it would be less of a, trees and then a cleared area and trees and then a cleared area would make it seem more like it was a single cleared area. That's my only opinion.
I have a question regarding that. If it's moved, or the potential of it moving, is that a new permitting process? Oh, I'm sorry. Would that require a new permitting process?
Yes. Yes.
And testing, or?
Same, we'd have to, new testing.
From start.
Well, I mean, we might be able to slide the same design uphill and to save a little time that way, but other than that.
test pits, would
The
test
process
pits-
is exactly starts from zero.
Other questions? Ron, do you want to add anything to the memo you put together?
Yeah, just specifically in terms of that, the board understands that the property is in the scenic protection overlay zone. That is what's driving this whole consideration. The SPO extends 250 feet into the track from the property line and encompasses from the roadway up to and including almost the entire house location. There's various conditions that are that relate to that being in that overlay zone. The minimum requirement is that a 50-foot green belt be provided where there's no disturbance of existing vegetation or trees. They're just at that limit now, so the comment was driven towards, the board was concerned with the desire to see that buffer or green belt be provided as wide as possible. And that's what the genesis of the comment was. So it's a matter for the board to decide, is there any interest to see further testing done to see if it can be brought closer to the house and further from the road. They are meeting the minimum requirement of 50 feet.
The other thing, this is a relatively this is relatively thin woods down here. I was out there today. I wanted to see this well myself. I'm getting old enough, so I shouldn't go places by myself. But at any rate, it's a relatively thin woods. It is down in just a little bit below it is pretty much brambles and stuff, and this will be allowed to grow back. I mean, we won't be able to keep trees on it, but it will be allowed to grow back, and the low-story vegetation will certainly regenerate in that area.
What assurances can be provided to ensure that the 50-foot minimum buffer is maintained?
Well, typically we stake out the septic system and it's constructed where it's designed. We certainly will do that. I mean, that's normal. And again, we're not out to change the design once we get it approved. I mean, it's.
No, understood. I mean, just to be sure that the contractor that implements your design recognizes the importance of that requirement.
Oh, we could put a note on the plan. B, we can stake it out.
Right.
And we can stake it a little more heavily if you like, and certainly put a note on the plan.
Right, a note on the plan and identifying that in a suggested construction sequence would go a long way to ensuring that that is achieved.
Sure. No problem doing that at all.
So in other words, what you're saying, Ron, is like go in where the driveway is going to be and then come out to this area rather than going from the road.
Say it again?
So what you're saying is that they would cut the driveway first
That's right.
and then come in from the
Come in from the house
from the
location,
house.
right.
Yeah, to avoid cutting things from the road.
Right.
Use the trench as a driveway, as an access way.
Is that-
I don't see any difficulty with that.
Kim, does that address your concern?
I'd rather see it go back, but, you know, it's, yeah, it's within the requirement.
And Steve, what degrees of freedom do we have to, as Kim is requesting, further go beyond the minimum standard?
If you find that it's necessary, well, there's no secret review involved, so you have no authority under that, it's type 2 action. If you find that it's necessary to carry out the conditions for site plan approval, then you have authority to impose that.
What if we ask for more screening? You know, if they
I
could just
thought- I
plant
was
more
thinking the
trees
same
at the road.
So the spot where the septic would be, you're asking for more screening between the road and the septic. Thoughts?
Yeah, there's a variety of other conditions beyond the specific 50-foot minimum, and you're touching on that as well. You are within your right to request further screening, additional trees along the frontage. There's a few different requirements that I put in the technical memorandum that the board's seen that identifies with other conditions, but certainly it supports your desire to see further buffering where they're doing that clearing near the road.
Steve, anything else you want to add?
No, I believe it's a minor project, so
Right.
the board can, within its discretion, direct that a public hearing be held, or you can not. I mean, it's not required, you have to determine that you want to hold one. But the planning board has traditionally historically held public hearings on applications like this, so I would think that the next step would be to, if you're satisfied with the plat that you have, to schedule a public hearing.
Neil, thoughts?
I think if they're compliant, and if they meet the setback requirement and they stipulate to additional coverage, I'm okay with the existing plan.
Peter, David?
I agree. Yeah, same here.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Good. All right, well, then I'd like to entertain a motion to schedule a public hearing, I assume, for our next planning board meeting. Can I entertain a motion for that, please?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. And I vote aye. All opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. So Kelly, let's with the applicant's permission, have our public hearing at our next meeting, unless that does not work for your schedules.
That works, thank you.
Okay. Anything else in this action? Okay, let's move on to Riverview Industries, Route 9. Thank you very much, Glenn. Dave? All right, Dave, have a good night. Riverview Industries, that's Glenn, that's right, Glenn, that's you? Okay, we'll wait on, no problem. Maybe Ron, you want to start with you, or should we start with Glenn? How's our-
Well, again, I can just remind the board, you've seen the technical memorandum that attempts to summarize all the comments offered at the site walk. We've identified a variety of concerns that you were seeking additional technical information on so that you could understand the areal extent of the current disturbance in the site and the use of the property for parking. They've highlighted in the past the extent of environmental constraints that exist on the property, from steep slopes to wetlands, wetland buffers, and floodplain, all of which impacts areas of the site that currently are being used. And I think a primary interest would be to see some kind of overlay of the existing parking layout onto the proposed parking scheme, so that you might understand what portions of the site are currently being used for the parking, the stockpiles, whatever exists on the property today. You also had concern over stopping site distance along Route 9, so you wanted that clarified. Referrals have been issued to DOT and to the Conservation Board, so you're awaiting comments from those agencies.
Glenn, things you want to add?
I have nothing really to add. I received Ron's comments, got to look at them earlier this evening, and I haven't been able to share them with my client because he's away. I have shared them with his attorney, but we have to go over them. So I didn't see anything that we would object to addressing, so.
Fellow board members, or observations from the site walk you want to raise in this comment, in this moment? Anything, Kim?
Nope.
Neil?
Until we know more about what the plan is, you know,
I'm sure everyone has lots of questions, but I think we need to know a little bit more about what their plan is. There's issues, not the least of which is the constructability of the site and the practical, moving all that equipment. I'd like to hear how they're gonna do this. There's a lot going on there, so I would ask them to give us as much information as they can.
Peter?
Right, I agree with Neil.
David?
And so do I.
The only comment I'd add is that there was a material amount of material on the site, and I think this is something we require, and I want the applicant to take seriously the board's observations and weight of those observations at that setting, because that was worthy of attention.
Yes.
Mr. Gabby, anything you want to add?
Yeah, please. I wasn't at the site visit, but I read the memo with great interest. The use that's being proposed for this is an accessory use, accessory to the auto body shop across the street. And it appears that it's being used as an independent parking or storage area for a number of things. And, you know, there are two issues that raises. The first is, of course, when planning board grants site plan approval, it can't do it in a vacuum and ignore the conditions that exist on the site. If there are conditions and terms that need to be imposed to clean it up or make sure that it complies with the site plan that's being requested, those conditions and terms should be addressed in the approval. And we look at something like the pavement moving out into the kind of wetland area, that's something that can't be overlooked. It's going to have to be addressed. The other thing is the discovery, if you will, the observations that were made at the site walk really bring into question, in my mind at least, whether this actually is a true accessory use to the auto body shop. I think it would benefit your client greatly if there could be some sort of a statement provided to the planning board saying, this is how we propose to use the parking area across the street to show that it's actually for vehicles or equipment, whatever it is, that's being used with the auto body shop, and it's not just a dodge to use the property as an independent parking storage area. So a statement of some kind would be, I think, very helpful.
Steve, let me add one more question. Are we allowed to request in a case like this where the environmental issues are fairly heavy to ask the Conservation Board to come before us and explain what their view is, so we have a little more?
Well, yeah, you can ask, but you can't make the concept.
No, of course you
don't
can't
have
make.
subpoena power, you know? You summon you before the planning board. That doesn't work that way. But you could certainly ask for a memo, and if somebody would be nice, kind enough to appear and speak to the board, you certainly can ask.
So I think that's, at least from the conversation we all had at the site, it seems that the environmental questions are very heavy there, and I would, if we have the assent of the board, I'd ask Ron or Steve to help us execute against something like that. Thoughts?
Just to follow up, I didn't mean to cut you off,
Yeah, go
but the planning board has already made a referral to the conservation board. I've had informal discussions with with Max Garfinkel directly. I seek to understand from the applicant whether you've appeared before them yet, but a permit will be required from that board as well. And it's very typical that I'm able to get a written memoranda out of that board for anything that's acted before this board. So I fully expect to see their comments issued to you, just for your information as you process the application, independent of their actions.
Normal,
Would that memo from the Conservation Board be in lieu of having them coming here to make a presentation?
That's your decision.
Oh, okay.
All I'm saying that I have every expectation that you'll see written comments from them.
One of us could go to their meeting. Kelly, when is their meeting?
They just had one, yeah.
Yeah, they just,
Third Wednesday?
yes, it'll be on the 11th.
Okay.
Well, Ron, are you able to provide us input about, because I don't want you to go to the meeting and it's not on the agenda, so maybe we could find out when
Sure.
this will next be on the Conservation Board's agenda, and we can discuss amongst ourselves who can go and engage.
I'll send you out a note. Yeah.
Cool. You want to say something?
yeah, normally, we advise clients and the board gets upset when any activity happens on a site while it's in review. And we discourage them from doing that. We're not always successful, but would there be any objection if he were to remove, like, I'm thinking of that pile of pallets which is the first thing that caught my eye. But is there anything to prevent him from doing that as opposed to starting work on the site plan? I see it as different.
Yeah, I think you currently have a violation on the property, or the applicant has a violation on the property. He could probably work directly with the town CEO. If he's trying to accomplish mitigation, I don't anticipate that's going to be an issue, but it should go through Greg Warner's office.
Right. but
You
I'm
also
just-
have- you also
I
have the-
understand that we have to clear it other places, but I just was, you would normally object to somebody starting a site, work on a site plan, but would you consider removal of some of this material as work on the site plan? If not, I'd like to,
Let's take the sentiment of the group, 'cause Kim, do you have an opinion?
I assume that whatever, I would see it go through Greg's office. Seems to me that, that's Greg's job, right?
Right.
I would think regarding any violations, again, with going through Greg's office would be the approach.
I agree. It'd be good if we had some documentation of the existing conditions before they did anything, whether it's just an overhead, something. Just so we can.
Already.
Right, that's already in your
Before and
memorandum.
after shots,
Yeah.
yeah.
I guess, just to be very clear, I think the direction is for you to, or have the applicant pursue the town building department to seek their endorsement, but that should be done once you come to some terms as to what he will permit. That should be evidenced in writing that can be distributed to him and this board.
Peter, anything to add?
Same, it should go to Greg.
Dave?
Yeah.
The one piece I'd add is, I like a doctor, I want there to do no harm. So I don't want, if they're gonna remove material, that to make the condition of the wetlands worse by the very movement of material. And so, I think, my opinion, it sounds like my colleagues agree, that if Greg thinks it's okay to do, because won't make the situation worse, then my guess is the group of us are not opposed to that, from what I've heard from the sentiment of the group.
okay.
Anything to add on that topic?
I guess one last thing is, there's the significant amount of stockpiles that I think you're addressing to some extent. There's also the issue of a great number of unregistered vehicles on the property. That should,
Well, that's the thing I'm talking about, generally speaking. I mean, I'm sure that stuff, a lot of that stuff can be removed. And I haven't talked with the client, but I want to talk to him about moving forward with that. I don't want to go down to Greg and have him give us a permit and put up whatever silt fence Max might want, and come back to the board and have you say, you're in site plan review, you shouldn't have done anything. That's all I'm trying to
The
get there.
sentiment of the board that at least as long as it's legally okay, that the group is comfortable with you doing things, as long as our CEO is okay with that.
I'm not talking about, and just to be on the record for you, I'm not talking about grading the site, I'm not talking about clearing the site, I'm not talking about building the site plan at all. Okay.
essentially, you're talking about no site disturbance, physical disturbance other than removal of
Right.
product.
Probably would have to put in some silt fence during that
Right,
removal
absolutely.
process.
Depends on how they're gonna
Absolutely.
remove it. I mean, you got big trucks in there, you could really tear the thing up.
Yeah.
But if it's okay with the CEO.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
I also think it's important to remember that even though we're here in January, a project of this size, both the permitting and the actual execution can take some time. So with the applicant,
No.
I know. So going to bat for you here, Glenn. So I think even though it's January, I think anything we can do to give them the jump on this project, I think is a good thing.
Thank you.
Ron, anything to add on next steps?
No, I think we've covered it.
Steve?
We're not prepared to move forward with a public hearing at this
No.
point.
I don't think so. There's a lot of technical information the board's seeking to understand just the extent of disturbances that exist out there today with respect to the variety of environmental concerns.
All right.
That should be documented before the board thinks about moving forward with a public hearing, just so the public is properly informed.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Steve? Even I didn't have the nerve to ask.
What is the site plan gonna change, really? I mean, you know,
It's hard to
it's a
tell.
parking lot for crying out loud.
We would like, as Neil said, a before and after. So the suggested satellite image of, what's there now would be, we would like, I think we should request that. I don't know if we have to.
We can do that.
That is very clearly covered in your memorandum.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so I guess, Glenn, your next step is, or your applicant's next step is to meet Ron's technical comments as well as the commentary about the
Yeah,
CDO.
it'll be a couple of months before I'm back.
We will be here.
Okay.
All right, anything else in this? All right, new business, any new business?
The third one was removed, CR.
Yes. All right, motion to adjourn this very brief 30-minute meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, good night, everyone. Thank you very much.